More than just apex predators in the food chain, grizzly bears stand as witnesses to the fragile balance of the ecosystem. This film opens a window into their harsh life cycle, the relentless challenges they face, and the way these bears endure in one of the planet's most unforgiving landscapes. In the wilds of North America, gray wolves have long been famed as tireless warriors, hunting in packs with cunning strategies and flawless teamwork. Their speed, intelligence, and unity make them a force feared by many other creatures. Yet when they step into the territory of the grizzly, the solitary giant of the wilderness, that dominance is no longer absolute. Encounters between the two are always charged with tension. On one side, the overwhelming power and authority of the bear. On the other, the agility and collective strength of the wolves. This is the brutal portrait of nature, where the strong and the clever constantly test one another in the fight for survival. At the edge of the damp forest, two massive grizzlies confront a fierce wolf pack in a blazing battle. Neither side is willing to yield, determined to defend their territory and their claim over every scrap of food. Roars echo through the air, blending with haunting howls, shaking the stillness of the night. The brutal clash ends with no clear victor. Amid the snow-covered mountains and forests, while the grizzly is absorbed in foraging beside a bush, a wolf suddenly lunges from behind. The lightning-fast strike stuns the bear, leaving it off balance and forcing it to flee from the danger. On the vast open field beyond the hill, a massive grizzly bear accidentally wanders into the wolves' territory. Immediately, the predators unite, their howls rising like a menacing warning. With flawless coordination and relentless attacks, the pack creates overwhelming pressure, forcing the grizzly to back down and retreat from the land that rightfully belongs to them. Across the dense forests and endless plains of North America, the elk stands as a symbol of wild beauty and enduring strength. With its towering frame and wide antlers branching like forest limbs, the elk embodies the proud spirit of a true leader of the herd. Yet life in the wild is never peaceful. When the grizzly appears, the supreme predator of the mountains, the air turns tense. In the open field, the elk raises its antlers, bracing for defense, while the bear advances with a low growl, ready to strike. The clash between these two mighty creatures becomes a fierce symphony of survival, where only instinct and strength decide who prevails. By the quiet riverside, two moose graze peacefully on tender grass. Suddenly, from behind, a grizzly bursts out in ambush. The sudden attack startles the moose, sending them fleeing headlong into the rushing river to escape the predator's grasp. At the forest's edge, the grizzly lies in wait, its cold eyes fixed on a migrating herd of elk. Patient and focused, it watches a small calf that's fallen behind the group. When the moment comes, the bear bursts from hiding, its powerful strike bringing the prey down. Seconds later, the calf is dragged into the bushes, claimed as the grizzly's prize. On the rugged mountainside, the grizzly roars and charges forward, its heavy steps thundering as it chases the fleeing herd of moose. But with superior speed and the advantage of the terrain, the herd quickly climbs the steep slope, leaving the predator far behind. Exhausted, the grizzly slows, then stops, its weary eyes watching helplessly as the prey escapes into the heights. Across the wild northern plains, the gray bear rises as a symbol of strength and resilience. With its thick silver-gray coat and massive frame, it rules the rugged mountains and forests. Yet even the mightiest predators cannot escape fierce confrontations. When two gray bears meet on the same territory, their roars echo across the land, each step closer carrying overwhelming power. Ferocious swipes and crushing blows send dirt and rock flying, igniting a battle of equals. This clash is not only a display of raw strength, but also a declaration of supreme dominance in the wild, where only the strong can endure the harshness of nature. At the silent forest edge, thunderous roars erupted as two gray bears hurled themselves into a merciless fight. Savage strikes and fierce bites sent dirt and grass flying in the storm. They grappled violently, strength evenly matched, neither willing to back down. The battle raged on, turning the roadside woodland into a wild arena. By the riverbank, the moment a carcass was spotted, the gray bears stormed in like raging whirlwinds, fighting to claim the precious meal. Roars thundered as razor-sharp claws tore through the air. The two largest bears clashed head-on, unleashing thunderous strikes as dirt and rocks flew, the river churning beside them. The battle for the kill grew fiercer than ever, a raw display of the wild's brutality and ferocity. Beneath the rushing river, two bears roared as they struck the same prey at once. They clashed violently, biting and slashing with furious claws, water exploding into white spray in their brutal struggle. At last, one bear seized the prize and dragged it quickly onto the slick stone shore. But the fight was not over. The other gave chase, and the two collided again, turning the riverbank into a breathless arena of survival. On the rocky riverbank, thunderous roars shattered the air as two gray bears charged at each other like raging storms. Heavy blows crashed down, razor-sharp claws slashing through the air, each strike unleashed with ferocious power. Water splashed white, pebbles scattered in all directions, turning the scene into a brutal arena. In the frenzy of instinct, both had only one goal: to claim dominance over this unforgiving riverside territory. Beneath a tree at the forest's edge, two gray bears suddenly clashed, their roars shaking the air. They grappled, clawed, and struck with ferocious blows, dirt and rocks flying in a storm of territorial battle. The fight raged on, tense and unyielding, until one bear, wounded and crying out in pain, turned away and fled, leaving the land to the towering victor standing guard. Across the vast northern tundra, caribou set out on migrations that stretch for thousands of kilometers, one of the greatest journeys in the animal kingdom. They travel in massive herds, crossing glaciers, swamps, and snowfields in search of richer feeding grounds. But along this path, danger is never far. Among the weakest and youngest in the herd, the grizzly emerges, a towering shadow of power. Breathless encounters unfold. Caribou rely on speed and the strength of the herd to escape, while the grizzly strikes with surprise and overwhelming force. It is a harsh contest between the tireless migrant and the ruler of the wild. By the rushing stream, a grizzly bursts out with a roar, seizing a reindeer. The prey fights back fiercely with its antlers, but is quickly forced beneath the water. Foam erupts, breaths fade into silence. When the reindeer lies still, more grizzlies pour from the forest, ending the hunt with a wild feast. By the raging river, a reindeer lowers its antlers and charges, driving the grizzly back into the current. Water explodes in white spray as a fierce battle erupts. The bear roars, unleashing strike after thunderous strike until the reindeer's strength fails and it collapses beneath the river's surface. At the forest's edge, the herd of reindeer continues its migration. In the thicket, a grizzly lies in wait, its eyes fixed on a calf. When the moment comes, it bursts forward with a decisive strike. In an instant, the young reindeer is brought down, quickly becoming a meal for the predator. By the rushing riverbank, white spray explodes as the grizzly's eyes blaze at the sight of a young reindeer lost from its herd. In a heartbeat, it charges like a storm, driving the panicked prey out into the raging current. The pounding of hooves and the crash of water merge into a chaotic symphony of life and death. In midstream, as the reindeer thrashes for escape, the grizzly unleashes a lightning strike. One brutal, decisive blow ends the feeble resistance. The prey collapses, breath fading, its body dragged onto the cold, damp stones of the shore. In the forest's stillness, the grizzly stands towering over its prize, closing the chapter on a dramatic hunt. On the treacherous mountainside, 3 grizzlies roar and charge after a lone reindeer. Claws scrape against stone, dust clouds rise, and the gap begins to close. But the reindeer, quick-witted, veers into a narrow crevice. In a heartbeat, it vanishes from sight, leaving the bears panting helplessly on the steep slope. By the rushing riverbank, a moose struggles to flee. Behind it, a grizzly charges forward, each heavy stride closing the gap. In an instant, a powerful swipe sends the moose stumbling, crashing into the water. Seizing the moment, the bear clamps down and strikes straight at its prey's head, leaving it no chance to fight back. Dragging the carcass onto shore, the grizzly asserts the absolute power of a ruler in the wild mountains. On the endless white expanse of the Arctic, the polar bear, the ruler of the frozen seas, reigns supreme, with its massive frame, flawless white camouflage, and masterful hunting skills. Farther south, amid the mountains and forests of Alaska, the grizzly holds its crown, with raw muscle and unyielding spirit. These 2 giants belong to different worlds, yet at the harsh frontier where their paths cross, a clash ignites. On one side stands the endurance and resilience of the polar bear. On the other, the explosive power of the grizzly. It is the moment when nature reveals its fiercest and most brutal face, where power belongs only to the truly strong. Along the icy shoreline, with the wind howling and waves crashing endlessly, the carcass of a large prey drifts ashore and quickly becomes the center of attention. From the depths of the forest, a grizzly emerges, heavy yet commanding in presence. From the frozen sea, a polar bear arrives, its eyes blazing at the prize before it. The two colossal bears face each other, the distance closing, as their roars thunder louder than the surf. The grizzly stands grim and unyielding, like a mountain of stone, while the polar bear embodies the endurance and grit of the frozen north. The carcass becomes the reason for an inevitable clash. In the dense forests and vast valleys of North America, the elk emerges with majestic beauty, its massive antlers like nature's weapons. They are gentle grazers living in herds and relying on vigilance to survive. But in the wild, that peace is always fragile. The grizzly bear, a powerful predator, often lurks at the forest's edge, waiting for a chance to strike at a calf or the weak. The encounters are tense and unforgiving. Adult elk fight back with the strength of their colossal antlers, while the grizzly unleashes the force of its claws and deadly pounce. It is a moment where life and death are separated by a single breath, revealing the brutality and the grandeur of nature. In the icy river, white spray erupts as a breathtaking chase unfolds between the grizzly and a moose. The massive moose throws all its strength into the current, hoping the raging water will carry it to safety. But behind, the grizzly presses on relentlessly, each stride heavy yet unyielding. As the distance closes, the bear launches a fierce attack. The moose fights back with its mighty antlers, striking in desperate sweeps. Yet in the freezing water that cuts like knives, its strength begins to fade, each defense weaker than the last, until the battle tilts in favor of the predator. In Yellowstone, a grizzly suddenly appears, sending the entire herd of moose into panic. In an instant, the thunder of hooves fills the air as the herd bolts into the deep forest to escape the predator. By the quiet riverbank, two moose graze on tender grass. Suddenly, from behind, a grizzly bear bursts out in ambush. The surprise attack startles the herd, sending them rushing into the swift current to escape the predator. On the mountainside, the grizzly charges after a moose. But the clever prey dives into the rushing river, forcing the bear to give up. At the forest's edge, the grizzly silently watches a herd of moose on the move. It waits with patience, eyes locked on the weakest calf. When the moment comes, the bear charges forward, its strike swift and precise, bringing the prey down. In an instant, the calf is dragged into the underbrush, quickly becoming a meal for the predator. In the dense forests and icy swamps of North America, the moose, the largest species of deer on Earth, strides proudly with antlers like a crown. They are symbols of endurance and resilience, able to survive in harsh conditions year-round. Yet this peace is sometimes shattered when the most dangerous predator of the wilderness appears, the grizzly. When the bear draws near, the moose does not always flee, but instead often takes a defensive stance, lowering its head with razor-sharp antlers, ready to deliver a fierce strike. On one side stands the raw muscle and hunting prowess of the bear, on the other, the size and defiance of prey not easily subdued. Such encounters are vivid testaments to the brutality of nature, where hunter and hunted alike must give everything to survive. By the stream, a moose is busy foraging when it suddenly comes face to face with a group of grizzlies. Sensing danger, it swiftly retreats, slipping skillfully into the deep forest to escape the attack. By the riverbank, a grizzly waits in silence, its watchful eyes fixed on a moose mother and calf wading in the water. When the calf becomes the target, the mother suddenly charges ashore with unexpected strength and fierce determination. Caught off guard by the surprise attack, the grizzly freezes, then bolts in alarm. Through the mother's bravery, the calf is shielded and escapes the predator's grasp. Amid the frozen rivers of North America, the salmon emerges as a symbol of resilience, with its epic upstream journey to spawn. Scarlet schools hurl themselves against the raging currents and towering rapids, defying countless lurking dangers. Yet there, the gray bear waits, a patient predator. When a salmon breaks the water's surface, the bear strikes in a lightning-fast blow, turning the river into a battlefield of life and death. On one side is the desperate struggle to preserve a species, on the other the blood-bound instinct of a ruler, painting a scene of nature both brutal and magnificent. On the icy rivers of Alaska, as the red salmon begin their upstream journey to spawn, nature awakens in a breathtaking spectacle of life. Shimmering schools of crimson and silver fish hurl themselves against raging rapids and pounding falls, driven by the instinct to carry on their kind. And it is in this very moment that the grizzly bear, the mighty predator of the wilderness, appears, turning the riverbank into an arena of life and death. With its massive frame and overwhelming presence, the bear stood patiently at the base of the waterfall, cold eyes fixed on the foaming rush of water. It knew that with the slightest misstep, the prey would slip past and be gone. But when the moment came, the bear roared and lunged forward, its enormous claws tearing through the water, tossing the struggling salmon into the air. In an instant, the river exploded with spray as the shimmering fish fell neatly into the bear's sharp jaws, ending its brutal journey. The wind whistled through the riverside trees, the roar of rushing water blending with the predator's fierce growls to create a majestic symphony of nature. For the grizzly, this was not just a feast, but the very source of life to store energy for the harsh winter ahead. For the salmon, each thunderous strike was a stark reminder of fate's fragility in their struggle to endure. The hunt, both brutal and magnificent, etched a timeless truth of the wild. The strong survive, The weak fall, and the eternal cycle of life and death continues unbroken in the frozen land. In the rugged mountains and deep forests of North America, the mountain lion, a solitary and agile predator, is known as the ghost of the wilderness for its silent, wind-like hunting style. They usually target deer or smaller animals, but at times fate brings them face to face with the gray bear. Against the grizzly's overwhelming strength and deadly claws, the mountain lion relies on speed and lightning-fast strikes to fight back. Such encounters are rare but breathless, revealing two extremes of the wild: silent agility against furious power, where survival belongs only to the one best adapted. On the desolate hillside, the gray bear crept forward as it spotted a mountain lion mother resting with her cubs. Healed, its gaze locked on the smallest one, ready to strike. But in that instant, the mother roared and leapt to the front, her body brimming with strength, determined to protect her young. Sharp, precise blows rained down, forcing the gray bear to recoil in pain. Stunned by such fierce courage, the giant of the wilderness was finally driven back, leaving the battleground to the brave mother and her safe cubs. On the snow-covered mountainside, the air seemed frozen as a pack of mountain lions growled over a freshly killed prey. But from the distance, a massive gray bear appeared, its heavy commanding steps advancing to claim the meal. Once the mountain lions leapt, striking with lightning speed, their roars echoing off the cliffs as they faced the bear's furious power. Snow exploded beneath claws and fangs, turning the frozen wilderness into a brutal arena where survival was decided by strength and ferocity. In the end, victory belonged to the mountain lions. On the vast northern tundra, the caribou herd begins its great migration, spanning thousands of kilometers, a rare wonder of nature. They cross icy rivers, treacherous marshes, and blinding snowfields in search of fertile lands. But this journey of survival is fraught with danger. Among the fragile calves, the towering figure of a grizzly suddenly appears, bringing the shadow of death. A breathless chase erupts. The caribou rely on speed and the unity of the herd, while the bear unleashes overwhelming power in relentless strikes. It is a fierce portrait of nature, where the enduring travelers must face the reigning predator of the wild. By the roaring stream, where the waters churn violently, the grizzly burst forth with a savage roar, slamming the unlucky reindeer to the ground. Though it swung its antlers in desperate defense, the prey was quickly pinned beneath the freezing current. Foam exploded into the air as its breath weakened, fading into silence beneath the river's roar. When the reindeer's body lay still, a group of bears emerged from the shadowy forest, ending the deadly chase with a fiery feast of the wild. By the rushing river, the reindeer lowered its antlers and charged straight at the grizzly, a desperate attempt to force the predator into the swirling current. White spray burst into the air as the clash thundered through the wilderness. The bear roared like thunder, unleashing a flurry of ferocious strikes. At last, the reindeer's strength gave way, collapsing into the freezing water, claimed as the spoils of a life or math struggle in the wild. By the raging river, where white foam surged wildly, the grizzly's cold eyes fixed on a young reindeer lost from the herd. In a flash, it lunged like lightning, driving the panicked prey into the swirling current. The clash of water and the scrape of claws rose together, forming a fierce symphony of the wild. As the reindeer struggled, the bear struck with a thunderous blow, swift and merciless. The prey collapsed, its body dragged onto the icy stone shore. In the stillness of the wilderness, the grizzly stood tall over its prize, a living emblem of absolute power. At the edge of the dense forest, the herd of reindeer moved quietly along their long journey. From the shadows of the thick foliage, the grizzly watched in silence, its eyes locked on the frail calf. When the moment came, it burst forward with a ferocious and precise strike. In an instant, the young reindeer collapsed, clanged as the prize of a powerful predator. Across the vast grasslands of North America, the bison, a symbol of endurance and strength, grazes calmly, moving in massive herds like dark clouds rolling across the earth. With curved horns and a body weighing a ton, the bison can stand as a living fortress against any foe. But nature is unforgiving. A massive gray bear suddenly appears, eyes blazing, charging to test its strength against the giant of the plains. Thunderous roars mix with the sound of pounding earth as the bear strikes with lightning-fast blows, while the bison lowers its horns, retaliating with hammer-like thrusts. This clash is not just a struggle for survival, but a majestic portrait of the wild, where true power alone decides who reigns. At the forest's edge, two massive bison suddenly turned their gaze toward the gray bear. Sensing imminent danger, the bear let out a low growl before swiftly turning away, slipping skillfully into the deep woods, leaving behind the fierce horns ready to charge. By the roadside, the herd of bison grazed quietly, unaware of the danger creeping closer. From within the thicket, the gray bear crouched low, its cold eyes locked on the weakest in the herd, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. At the foot of the mountain, even a lone bison was enough to make the scene feel breathless. When it spotted the gray bear blocking its path, it did not retreat, but lowered its head, horns gleaming in the sunlight, and charged like a storm. The ground shook with each heavy step as dust rose in thick clouds. Taken aback by such raw power, the gray bear roared, but quickly turned away, slipping into the dense forest. Across the vast prairie, the deer moved with graceful steps and watchful eyes. They embodied elegance and alertness in the wild. But such peace never lasts, for the ruler of the forest, the grizzly, can appear at any moment. When its deep roar thundered, the herd jolted awake, their powerful legs shooting them forward like arrows slicing through the wind. The chase became a breathless duel between the grizzly's brutal strength and the deer's extraordinary agility. It was a ruthless drama of survival, where every fleeting second marked the boundary between life and death. At the forest's edge, beneath the dry grass, a grizzly quietly searched for food. Suddenly, its sharp eyes spotted a young deer fast asleep. In an instant, the silence was broken. The bear moved in, swift and decisive. The fawn awoke in panic, struggling to break free, but the grizzly's immense power overwhelmed it completely. It was a brutal encounter, a stark reminder of nature's harsh law of survival, where the strong always claim victory. At the forest's edge by a watering hole, a herd of deer bent their heads to drink in peace. Suddenly, a grizzly spotted them and charged, sending the herd scattering in panic into the woods. In the chaos, a frail fawn was caught in the bear's grasp. The chase ended swiftly as the predator tore into its prey in the heart of the forest. By the stream, a moose grazes peacefully on fresh grass when it suddenly comes face to face with a group of grizzlies. Sensing the danger close in, it quickly turns and bolts, weaving through the thick trees before vanishing into the deep forest, escaping the tense pursuit. By the riverbank, the grizzly stands watching, its cold eyes fixed on a moose and her calf standing in the water. When the calf moves into range, the bear takes a slow step forward, ready to strike. But suddenly, the mother moose charges onto the shore, attacking fiercely with the raw power and instinct of a protector. Caught off guard, the grizzly hesitates, then retreats in haste. Thanks to her courage, the calf is safe, free from the claws of the forest's most feared predator. In the rushing river, a moose panics and flees, with the grizzly charging hard behind. In a split second, a powerful swipe knocks the moose off balance, sending it crashing into the water. The grizzly pins it down, striking at the prey's head, then drags the body to shore, asserting the absolute dominance of the mountain's true ruler. Across the vast tundra plains of the north, herds of caribou begin their monumental migration. Stretching thousands of kilometers, is one of nature's most spectacular feats. Each step carries them across frozen rivers, treacherous marshes, and snow-covered fields in search of fertile lands. But this path of survival is far from peaceful. Among the fragile young of the herd, the towering figure of a grizzly bear emerges, bringing with it the shadow of death. A tense chase erupts. The caribou rely on speed and the power of unity to escape, while the bear strikes with overwhelming force. It is a brutal portrait of nature, where tireless migrants clash with a predator that rules the wild. By the roaring stream, as the rushing waters churned, the gray bear suddenly charged out with a thunderous roar, striking the unlucky reindeer. The prey fought back desperately, its antlers flung in a hopeless defense, but was quickly forced down into the icy water. Foam sprayed wildly, breaths came sharp and fast before fading beneath the crashing waves. As the reindeer's body grew still, from the dark forest shadows, the pack of gray bears emerged, closing the deadly chase with a fierce, primal feast. By the rushing riverbank, white spray burst into the air as the gray bear's piercing gaze fixed on a lost young reindeer. In an instant, it lunged forward like lightning, driving the terrified prey closer to the swirling current. The sound of thrashing claws and crashing water merged into nature's chaotic symphony. As the reindeer staggered, desperately searching for escape, the gray bear unleashed a thunderous strike, swift and merciless. The faint struggle faded away, and the prey collapsed, its body dragged onto the cold, stony shore. In the stillness of the mountains and forest, the towering figure of the gray bear loomed over its prize, sealing the breathtaking moment of the hunt. At the edge of the dense forest, the herd of reindeer kept moving forward on their endless migration. Hidden beneath the thick canopy, a gray bear watched intently, its eyes locked on the weakest calf in the group. Waiting for the perfect moment, it suddenly burst out, delivering a powerful and precise strike. In the blink of an eye, the young reindeer was thrown down, becoming the prize of a formidable hunter. In the frozen taiga forests of the north, the Siberian tiger, the largest cat on earth, moves silently like a shadow across the white snow. With its fiery orange coat, piercing eyes, and majestic form, it reigns as the hidden ruler of the icy wilderness. Yet this land has another sovereign, the grizzly, heavy but brimming with power. When these two forces meet by the frozen river, the air itself seems to freeze. The bear roars a challenge while the tiger lowers its body, muscles tensing for a deadly strike. The clash between these two symbols of taiga power is not just a fight for survival. It is a reminder of the raw balance and unforgiving beauty of the wild. In the silent wilderness, a grizzly spots a Siberian tiger feeding on its kill and charges to attack. Caught off guard, the tiger panics and flees into the deep forest, abandoning its prize. But the grizzly doesn't relent. It pursues its rival relentlessly into the shadows of the woods. In the dense bamboo forest, a pack of Siberian tigers spots a lone grizzly cub. They rush in, surrounding it, and with lightning-fast strikes, the prey collapses, then is quickly torn apart in the wild. Guarded by the riverbank, a pack of Siberian tigers suddenly charges in, surrounding and attacking the grizzly. Though outnumbered, the bear roars fiercely, fighting back with powerful swipes. Driven into the water and struck hard, the grizzly bellows in pain, but with quick instincts, it finds an opening, counterattacks, and dashes toward the forest, escaping the deadly circle of ruthless predators. In the wild northern forests, the moose stands tall, a symbol of strength and calm. With its massive body and crown-like antlers towering high, it reigns as the ruler of the frozen marshlands. Yet even this giant cannot escape the brutal trials of survival. When the grizzly appears, eyes glowing, movements stealthy, the air itself seems to thicken. Amid roars and splashing water, the moose raises its antlers in defiance, setting the stage for a breathtaking showdown between two forces of the wild, where only instinct and will determine who survives. On the vast plains of North America, the bison herd, symbols of strength and endurance, graze calmly, moving in massive formations like dark clouds drifting across the earth. With their fierce curved horns and bodies weighing tons, they are living fortresses that any predator must respect. Yet nature is never predictable. From the nearby woods emerges a massive grizzly, eyes blazing with fire, determined to challenge the giant of the grassland. A furious roar echoes, mingling with the rumble of the ground as the bear charges with thunderous swipes, while the bison counters with crushing blows like a sledgehammer. This clash is not just a battle for survival, but a grand and tragic portrait of the wild, where ultimate power belongs only to the truly mighty. At the foot of the desolate mountain, even a lone bison is enough to make the air feel heavy. When it comes face to face with a grizzly blocking its path, it does not falter, lowering its head and curving its horns before suddenly charging like a raging storm. The ground trembles with each thunderous step. Overwhelmed by such raw power, the grizzly roars defiantly, then quickly turns away, vanishing into the forest. At the edge of the forest, two massive bison suddenly halt, their wary eyes fixed on the grizzly. Sensing danger closing in, the bear lets out a deep growl before swiftly turning away, slipping skillfully into the dense shadows of the woods. Behind it, the colossal horns remain poised, ready to charge if the intruder dares to strike. By the roadside, a herd of bison grazes peacefully, utterly unaware of the lurking danger. In the thick underbrush, a grizzly lowers its massive frame, eyes locked coldly on its target. It waits with patient precision, aiming for the calf within the herd. Across the vast plains of the northern mountains, the bison, symbol of strength and freedom, walks tall against the cold wind. With its massive frame, thick coat, and proud curved horns, it stands as a true warrior of the wild. Yet even such a mighty creature cannot escape the trials of harsh nature. In the dense forest along the hillside, the grizzly appears, its sharp gaze tracking every move of the herd. When these two forces meet, the land itself seems to hold its breath. The bear roars and the bison lowers its head, ready for the clash between two symbols of wilderness power, where only courage and strength decide who will rule. At the edge of the forest, two massive bison turn their heads in unison, their wary eyes fixed on the grizzly. Sensing the danger closing in, the bear lets out a low growl, then swiftly slips back into the forest, leaving behind the furious horns, ready to charge and raid. By the roadside, a herd of bison grazes peacefully, unaware of the danger lurking nearby. In the bushes, the grizzly crouches low, its cold eyes locked onto every movement, waiting for the perfect moment to strike at a calf in the herd. At the foot of the mountain, a lone bison stands tall in the open plains. When the grizzly blocks its path, it doesn't back down. It lowers its head, horns gleaming, and charges like a storm. The ground trembles, dust fills the air. Facing such raw power, the grizzly roars, then turns and disappears into the deep forest. Across the plains and dense forests of North America, the elk stands out with its majestic stature and massive antlers, a true symbol of nature's strength. They often live in herds, migrating across vast lands in search of food. Yet beneath this peaceful image lies the constant shadow of life and death moments when the gray bear appears. In tense encounters, the powerful adult elk lowers its antlers, ready to fight for the herd, while the gray bear counters with the sheer force of its claws and ferocious strikes. These clashes vividly portray the harshness of the wild, where only the strong can survive. On the desolate mountainside, the grizzly roared and charged after the moose. But the quick-witted prey leapt straight into the rushing river. Helpless against the treacherous terrain, the bear was forced to stop, watching as its quarry escaped. In the icy river, water splashed white as the gray bear and the moose clashed in a breathless chase. The massive moose pushed hard into the current, hoping the rushing waters would shield it, but the bear stayed close with every stride. When only a step remained, the bear struck fiercely, forcing the moose to fight back with its massive antlers sweeping like sledgehammers. Yet in the skin-cutting cold of the river, the moose's strength quickly drained, its resistance fading, and the final advantage fell to the gray bear. In Yellowstone, a gray bear suddenly appeared, sending a herd of moose into panic. The pounding of hooves echoed as the herd rushed into the deep forest to escape. On the rocky mountainside, the gray bear roared and charged after the fleeing herd of moose. But with the advantage of speed and agility on the steep terrain, the moose quickly climbed higher, leaving the predator far behind. Breath growing heavy and steps slowing, the gray bear was finally forced to stop, powerless, as its prey vanished into the misty mountain peak. By the riverbank, two moose grazed peacefully, unaware of the danger closing in. Suddenly, from behind the bushes, a gray bear charged out like a fierce shadow. Its sudden appearance sent the moose herd into panic, hooves pounding as they rushed into the rushing waters to escape the predator's claws. At the edge of the dense forest, the grizzly bear lay hidden, silently watching a herd of moose on their migration. Its eyes locked on the smallest calf, slower than the rest. Waiting for the perfect moment, the bear burst forward like lightning, striking with a powerful blow that brought its prey down. In an instant, the young moose was dragged deep into the thicket. In the wilds of North America, gray wolves are known as resilient warriors, hunting in packs with cunning strategies. They possess speed, unity, and sharp intelligence that make many species wary. Yet when they cross into the domain of the grizzly, the solitary giant of the mountains, the wolves are no longer absolute rulers. Tense encounters unfold. On one side, the bear's overwhelming power. On the other, the wolves' agility and teamwork. It is a moment where nature reveals its ferocity as strength and cunning clash endlessly in the struggle for survival. Beneath a tree at the forest's edge, a massive grizzly faces off against two greedy gray wolves, vying for its prey. With a powerful strike, the bear displays its iron strength, forcing the wolves to falter, too intimidated to advance. At the edge of the damp forest, two massive grizzlies clash fiercely with a pack of ferocious wolves. Both sides fight to claim dominance, from scraps of meat to vast territory. Roars shake the mountains, howls tear through the night, a breathless battle with no victor, and no one willing to back down. On the grassland beyond the hillside, a pack of gray wolves suddenly spots a massive grizzly straying into their territory. At once, the predators unite, their howls echoing through the air, building overwhelming pressure. Faced with relentless attacks and the cunning tactics of the pack, the grizzly is forced to retreat, abandoning the land that belongs to the wolves. On the snow-covered mountain, a grizzly forages by the shrubs when a wolf suddenly lunges from behind. The surprise strike startles the bear, throwing it off guard and sending it fleeing. In the dense forests and frozen marshlands of North America, the moose, the largest deer in the world, strides proudly with antlers like a crown, a symbol of endurance and resilience. But this peace is often shattered when the grizzly appears. Confronted by the fierce predator, the moose does not always flee. Instead, it often takes a defensive stance, lowering its head and preparing to strike with razor-sharp antlers. On one side stands the relentless strength of the hunter, on the other, the size and tenacity of its prey. These breathless encounters reveal the raw brutality of nature, where every creature must fight to the end to survive. By the stream, while foraging peacefully, the moose suddenly came face to face with a group of grizzlies. Sensing the danger, it swiftly withdrew, slipping into the deep forest with agility to escape unharmed. By the riverbank, the grizzly lay in wait, its eyes fixed on the fragile young moose. But just as danger drew near, the mother charged forward, unleashing a furious attack that forced the bear to stumble back and retreat in haste. Through her courage, the calf was shielded, escaping the predator's grasp to live another day. By the rushing river, the moose bolted in panic, but the grizzly closed in swiftly. With a ferocious strike, it brought the prey down, pinning it tightly and delivering a fatal blow. At last, the bear dragged the carcass to the riverbank, displaying the absolute power of a ruler of the wild. In the frozen taiga forests of the north, the Siberian tiger, the largest cat on Earth, moves silently like a shadow across the white snow. With its fiery orange coat, piercing eyes, and majestic form, it reigns as the hidden ruler of the icy wilderness. Yet this land has another sovereign, the grizzly, heavy but brimming with power. When these two forces meet by the frozen river, the air itself seems to freeze. The bear roars a challenge while the tiger lowers its body, muscles tensing for a deadly strike. The clash between these two symbols of taiga power is not just a fight for survival. It is a reminder of the raw balance and unforgiving beauty of the wild. In the silent wilderness, a grizzly spots a Siberian tiger feeding on its kill and charges to attack. Caught off guard, the tiger panics and flees into the deep forest, abandoning its prize. But the grizzly doesn't relent. It pursues its rival relentlessly into the shadows of the woods. In the dense bamboo forest, a pack of Siberian tigers spots a lone grizzly cub. They rush in, surrounding it, and with lightning-fast strikes, the prey collapses, then is quickly torn apart in the wild. Guarded by the riverbank, a pack of Siberian tigers suddenly charges in, surrounding and attacking the grizzly. Though outnumbered, the bear roars fiercely, fighting back with powerful swipes. Driven into the water and struck hard, the grizzly bellows in pain, but with quick instincts, it finds an opening, counterattacks, and dashes toward the forest, escaping the deadly circle of ruthless predators. In the wild northern forests, the moose stands tall, a symbol of strength and calm. With its massive body and crown-like antlers towering high, it reigns as the ruler of the frozen marshlands. Yet even this giant cannot escape the brutal trials of survival. When the grizzly appears, eyes glowing, movements stealthy, the air itself seems to thicken. Amid roars and splashing water, the moose raises its antlers in defiance, setting the stage for a breathtaking showdown between two forces of the wild, where only instinct and will determine who survives. The grizzly bear, a symbol of strength, resilience, and courage. Even in the face of climate change or human encroachment, it endures, it fights, it lives each day to the fullest. If you admire that spirit, hit like, share this video, and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss any of nature's other extraordinary journeys.